There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
We gotta carry on. We gotta carry on. Be strong. Be strong.
Here's something that most of us have learned the hard way. When you lose someone unexpectedly, someone who's close to you, you don't just mourn that person. Swirled around in all the shock, you also have to process the loss of your life with that person. And especially if they're young when they pass away. And especially when that person is your partner.
I really do believe now that we are just vessels, and yes, someone can die, but we're all made up of just like energy, and it's got to go somewhere. And I felt him around me, and I still do, and I feel him in my dog, and I see him in my daughter. Like, I know he's everywhere.
If the person you love happens to be famous, you also have to throw in a whole other layer, the media, and a public who want details and photos and interviews.
Australian Winter Olympian Chumpy Pullin has drowned in a free-diving accident on the Gold Coast.
Known as a kind-hearted man with a love of people and the outdoors, Chumpy Pullin's death has caused shockwaves.
When Ellidy Pullin's great love and partner of 8 years, Alex, or Chumpy as he was known, died 2 years ago, they were trying for a baby. And 15 months after she lost him, Ellidy gave birth to that baby.
I just heard the word sperm retrieval, and I just didn't even want to have a conversation, but I just said, go and do whatever you can. I don't even know what that means, but yes.
There's this phenomenon that sometimes happens after a tragedy. It's called post-traumatic growth. And today you're going to hear a beautiful, emotional, heartfelt story of love and loss and rebirth and actual birth in the most surprising circumstances. I loved this episode, and I know you will too. I wanted you to share some happy memories of Chumpy, because I've watched interviews with you and the way you light up when you speak about him, and it's pretty beautiful. So I wanted to ask you about when you first became aware of him, because you guys moved in similar circles, right,
Yeah.
on the northern beaches. I imagine you both knew who each other were.
Yeah, we knew of each other. You know those people that you kind of always walking past or like near, or he's in that group and I'm over here. Like, you're always kind of watching each other, but we were both never available. And I mean, look, I was never looking at him like that. I just knew of him.
Yeah.
And he knew of me.
Was he a big deal at that stage?
No. And I mean, maybe in his own world, but I knew nothing about snowboarding.
Yeah. So he wasn't like a mini celebrity.
I mean, not really, but he was definitely like that hot guy that used to come to our parties and play guitar and be like really talented at that. But when it comes to music, I'm the same as snowboarding. I'm a bit like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anything. I don't know how to pick up an instrument. Like, I don't know how to snowboard.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've always been into surfing, and my life's always been at the beach. My brother's was always a pro surfer, and I always surf. So like, when it comes to the surfing world, I can tell you all the pro surfers, and like that was my world.
Yeah.
But when it comes to snow, I mean, I always knew of that guy, and I was like, oh, I think he does like half pipe snowboarding. Like, I didn't even know what discipline he did.
So it didn't impress you much?
No.
Yeah.
My mum had to Google him later and be like, do you know his X, Y, and Z? And I was like, oh, nah.
When did you first hook up? Was it at that 21st?
Yeah, it was at Laura and one of my best friends' 21st. We just kissed, and I just remember like we both just couldn't stop smiling. We were just like kind of like our legs were just over each other, and we were just in a chair together and just drunk and just having fun.
He was a couple of years older than you.
Yeah, 5 years older.
So a 26-year-old, and you're 21
20.
at the time, 20 at the time, he was 25. You wouldn't expect it to sort of be that serious.
Not really, but I'm not the kind of person that ever just like hooks up with anyone, like ever. And I had a serious relationship just break up, and then weirdly kissed this guy, and I'm like, I wish I was so much more like that. I really, really envy like people that just kiss anyone and like, you know, we'd go out with the girls and everyone would be like, how many guys did you kiss tonight?
With.
And they'd be like, 20. And I'd be like, I didn't kiss anyone. I'm scared. Like, you know, I'm like that. So I was obsessed with him from like the second that we kissed, because like for me to want to kiss someone.
Yeah.
I know it just sounds so lame being like, I kissed him.
I kissed a boy.
Yeah, I kissed a boy. But that for me, like I have to be like really into someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was on, but he's the same.
So he wasn't a fuckboy?
No, fuck no. No way.
Because by looking at him from the outside, you could think,
yeah,
he was popular with the ladies, you would think.
Oh, definitely popular, but like he's not like that. And he actually had a serious girlfriend overseas from Bulgaria for like 5 years or something as well. So we both just came from serious relationships. And I think a lot of people, when I started seeing Chump or talking to him, they'd be like, oh, well, he's just like a stoner snowboarder who's off overseas most of the year. Like you don't know what he's up to. And I was just like, actually I do. And I'm so not a naive person either. And it's so funny, my friend Chloe, who also goes out with Fisher, who's a world-famous DJ, exactly the same. She gets the exact same shit from people being like, oh, he's a DJ off doing God knows what. And it's not even like that we're naive. It's just this innate knowing that she's like, please trust me. Like it just takes you a second. You just have to meet him for 1 second and then you just know straight away he's not like that. And I don't even mean to bring them into it, but it's the exact same as Chump. It's just not like that.
Because it's quite
it's rare.
Not only is it selling you short, but it's also selling them short. The idea that no guy could keep it in his pants.
But I agree with that a lot of the time. I really, really do. I've been cheated on. Like and I just came from that. Like I fully get that completely.
But you just always had that complete trust between the two of you.
Totally. And he's just not like that in the way that I'm not. And like it's not even a conversation you have to have. It's just like this gut knowing that you just feel safe and you trust.
What happened after that first night? How fast did it get serious?
It just got serious over message, and we were just sending these big, long messages, like just confessing just how we felt kind of thing. And it's, again, not something I usually do. I hate writing, hence why Ali helped me write the book. Like she was amazing. Like I have so many thoughts, but I hate that actual like, oh, I don't want to sit down and write this big ass essay.
Yeah.
I'm just not like that, and I'm not overly emotional. Like I just like I'll have a big cry and then I'll be like, okay, cool, I'm better now. Let's go do this. Like change of subject. You know, I'm just typically like a very realistic person. So no, I was getting very deep with him, and he's a very deep emotional person. So I was just obsessed. And then I guess I was sending all these big long messages, and it was getting like serious. Yeah, not really.
And you still only just kissed?
Kind of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just kissed. But as soon as he went home from the party, like we must have both left the party at like 2 a.m. I had friends come back to mine. He went, I don't even know where. And straight away, you know, like adds me on Facebook, adds me on Instagram, and like lots of guys don't just do that and then like message straight away being like, oh, it was so fun with you tonight, like that. And I'm like, oh, so cool. We're not playing games. And then
refreshing.
Yeah, refreshing. We love that. And I guess skip forward a few weeks, like we were just like dying to see each other, and there was this like pull, like I just need to see you kind of thing. And then
he was in Melbourne, right?
Yes. So then he was about to fly out overseas, and he was like, look, I know you're away. You're down south with your girlfriends, like having a fun weekend down south for one of the girls' birthdays. He was in Melbourne. He was like, I'm flying to Europe in 2 days. I'm at this hotel. Why don't you come and meet me for a night? Because I'm about to go away for like 3-4 months. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we were out at the time. My friends just booked me these tickets. They're like, we are driving back to Sydney tomorrow. We are dropping you at the airport. I felt like a little kid on her first day of school, and also very hungover too. And just went down and met him. And we were just on, and it was just so natural. It was just like we'd been together forever.
Because sometimes people can say, if you text for too long, it can sort of turn into something that's then awkward when you see each other.
Totally. And I was so worried about that.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't like that. I think we just like bit the bullet and we just hugged and we were like, oh my God, so excited to see you kind of thing. Like I think it was just meant to be. It was like we'd been together forever.
And then you spent that first weekend locked down before there was such thing as lockdown, voluntarily locked down in a hotel.
Yes.
Getting to know each other.
Exactly.
It's funny, so much of the commentary around the two of you focus on how gorgeous you both are. Like you are tall. Yeah, like like not Barbie and Ken, but like more beautiful. Like you're tall and blonde and beautiful and a surfer, and he's a snowboarder and tall and dark hair, and like aesthetically you are the dream couple. But from everything that I've seen and everything that I've read about the two of you, what strikes me most is how goofy you were together.
Goofy for sure.
The goofiness.
He doesn't know, like, thank you for saying those things. He though is absolutely stunning and just flawless. Like, he's an angel. I swear he wasn't even real. His skin just glowed. He never had a pimple or like anything ever. Like, he was just this perfect person. Whereas I'm always like, oh, I got acne, like I got this, I got that, like help me, my hair sucks. Like, but I'm a girl, obviously.
Yeah, but you both look ridiculous, but you could see that there was so much more than that. Like, to me, your connection seems the goofiness and the your outlook on life.
We're very natural and real. We just don't care about it. We just don't care. We just live life, and we definitely are goofy, but he's like particularly goofy. Like, he would just come home and put on like these crazy accents. I think he was obviously a snowboarder. He was definitely meant to be a musician. Like, he was a musician, but I think he could have done it professionally. I mean, he didn't not do it professionally, but he could have been like a full artist. And then I also think he really could have been an actor too, because he just gets into role. Like, he really channels characters, and he just gets into like role play, and it's so funny. And he'll just be off on this tangent like all night, and I'll just be like, oh my gosh, like Captain Jack Sparrow, like hello, like, you know, like he'll just be like.
Neither of you had to play it cool.
No. Oh my God, no, never. I mean, not even at the start we didn't really have to play it cool, I guess. But yeah, definitely not after 8 years. Like, no way.
When did you move in together?
Actually, straight away, which is also weird. And I'm like a very stand on my own 2 feet, independent person. Like, I got kicked out of home young, not young, but like we're very
What did you get kicked out of home for?
Well, we used to pay rent at home, obviously, to live. And then like when I left school, even though I did uni, it was like, no, you're paying to live at home. Like, you need to pay $150 a week. And I was like, oh, but I don't really earn much because I'm at uni. But like, that's just the rule. And then I went traveling for a few months, and my stepdad was a bit like, well, you're traveling, your room's got your bed and all your shit in it, and you're not paying. So he packed up all my stuff and had it ready by the front door when I came home. So he was like, hey, by the way, your room's not here because we could rent it out to some other child or some other person that wants to pay your rent.
Tough
so
love,
I was like,
man.
oh, you're a jerk. Got my stuff. And so I guess essentially I did move straight in with Chumpy then into this place that he was staying at in Collaroy, that he was just being put up at the time just to train on the northern beaches in Sydney. But then he bought a place in DY just down the road, which is like, I grew up on the northern beaches. So he just bought a place in DY, and he was always planning on buying a place, but then we got together and he was like, okay, I definitely want to buy in Sydney. And he wanted to just kind of solidify it or us, maybe, I think. So he was like, I can't live in this alone. You're coming with me. So then we both moved into there together because he bought it off the plan. So as soon as it was built, we both moved into there, and it was really cute. We just both like set up. Like, I remember going to the furniture shops, and it was just so cool. And I was like, I had just turned 21, and I just felt like such an adult. Like, everyone was still just living at home, and mummy and daddy were buying them milk and tea and shit like that.
Yeah, that's early to move in together. Did anyone warn you against it?
I think people were just like, oh, wow, you're moving in with him already? Like settle down. Like, and I was just like, nah, like, it's, you know, it feels right. Like, it's not me being a clinger who can't be on my own. Yeah. It's actually just, I love him, and it's actually just convenient because I've just been kicked out of home, and hey, it's working. It's working. Like, and we just clicked. We were just like, we never tried. It was just easy.
Was he still traveling a lot for snowboarding then?
He was always traveling a lot. So he was always away, like always definitely away from about November to March. He would always come back. Like, so he would be away for about those 5 months, but every month he'd come back for a week. So it was always like 3 weeks, come back, 3 weeks, come back. So it was never 5 months straight. It was always really doable.
So even though it happened fast, you had that space built in.
Yeah.
That separation.
Totally. Yeah, which I love, because I love the whole like, okay, you go and do you, I'll do me. I really miss you. I can't wait to see you. Like, I literally love that. I'm super independent. I love doing my own thing. And I love being able to miss someone and then getting so excited to see them.
So nice. When did he retire?
He actually hadn't retired, but he was planning on it. So I'd say he was just about to retire, like literally when he passed away. He was probably just about to announce it just after. I guess COVID happened and traveling wasn't happening, but he was if he was about to go overseas and compete, he was like probably not going to do that. He was just about to retire.
Was that something that you guys talked about, what it would mean, the future, what you both wanted to do?
Yeah, because Chump's a real planner. So we wanted to have babies and we also just moved into our dream house on the Gold Coast in Queensland. So he was obsessed with that and he's a real like house proud homebody kind of person. Like he's always just building. He's really into woodwork and he's really good with his hands, like building little trinkets around the house and putting like little installations everywhere around the house. Like very chumpy. My house is just chumpy all through it. And so once we moved in there and we made it home, we got our dog, he was just like, I can't leave. And so there was a European winter, so our summer where he did go and do his like time away and he was just hating it because he just wanted to be in his home that he'd just bought and built with me, you know what I mean? So we were always wanting to have bubs and we were always like about to start trying, but his whole thing was like, no, I have to retire first because I can't go away and I have to be like, I'm here and da-da-da. So we had just started trying for like a year, basically before he passed away, almost a year we'd been trying because he was basically like just dragging out his retirement. He was just about to retire.
And because with COVID.
Yeah. And he was probably kind of just waiting for me to just fall pregnant. So it was like, okay, now I'm retiring.
Yeah.
Because there was no way he'd leave. He could barely leave our dog.
Do you make a lot of money as a professional snowboarder?
You make money when you win. So I think you make like some prize money. And sponsors, I guess. So he had Red Bull, which was a good sponsor. I mean, I think in his sport, border cross snowboarding, it's not like he's driving like one of those V1 cars or whatever that go around the track. Like it's not like that kind of a sport. But it was getting more popular. But he was probably one of the better paid in his sport.
And I suppose looking for a life beyond that, what did he imagine that he was going to do for a job?
Well, so he was actually going to start a podcast. That was part of his plan. But to make money, he was definitely going to go
into my grass.
Yeah, he was going to cut your grass. He was definitely going to play music as well, but maybe that wasn't going to be a job. That was just
a passion,
something he always did. But he was going to do keynote speaking. So like he had his talk all mapped out and I actually have it on, like he filmed it and I've got him standing in his studio in my house like saying this keynote speech and it's just so funny. It was like the first trial run and I just love it. I just love watching it. It's so funny. It's so like it makes me so emotional when I watch it because I'm just like, oh my God, I think he would have done so well. But it's so cute watching him just be like he'd fuck up and then he'd just like fumble for a few minutes and then like get back in. It was just like the most rawest video that you can imagine of him. It was so cool.
When did you realise that it was going to be a bit tougher than you thought to get pregnant?
Probably after, I think we probably tried for a solid 6 months and then I was like, okay. And I know that that's not a long time. I know that that's not very long. People try for years. But I was like, oh.
When you're both so young.
Yeah. I was like, is something wrong with me? Like, I mean, sure as hell, I don't think anything's wrong with him because he's always perfect. I'm sure he's.
Oh, you can't tell from the outside.
You cannot tell from the outside, but it's always just that girl thing. It's probably me. I'll take myself to the doctor and I'll figure it out. So I did go and get tests and they said that I had a low egg count, but pretty low. So like a 3 when I think a lot of the time it's like 20 something. It's like this ratio thing. So basically the doctor said just keep trying for like until you reach a year and then let's look into IVF. So I wasn't like worried at all. I'm pretty chilled out. But every month when I get my period, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm just like, I'd get sad.
Messes with your head, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. And people are just like, you know, just don't not try. Just chill. Just don't think about it. And I'm like, no, as soon as you are trying or not trying, you go crazy.
You do. You go crazy and it can affect sex and it can affect how you feel about yourself and it can really mess with you and how you feel like as a woman and
totally. Yeah. Because you just hear of, I've got so many friends that just accidentally falling pregnant all over the shop and I'm like, how?
You did egg retrieval, you know, for IVF, right? So you had to go through that whole process.
Yes.
It's easier for the bloke than it is for the woman.
So much easier for the bloke. Yeah.
Here's a cup. Off you go.
Yeah, go have fun. Here's a magazine.
But you did a round of IVF just before.
Oh, no.
You hadn't done
Chump
it.
and I hadn't done that. So we were definitely about to do IVF. That was like our next step. So it had probably reached like the 9 or 10 month mark, and we were like so close to doing IVF.
Okay.
We hadn't done any IVF together. So I think a lot of people assume, because I don't go into my story in great depth with just anyone, if they're just like, oh, so, you know, who's your baby's daddy or something. I'm just like, oh, yeah, he passed away, da-da-da-da-da. I don't need to tell them like the exact times. And then I got pregnant 6 months later and blah, blah, blah. So they just assume I must have been pregnant when he passed away.
Yeah.
I think, or maybe they assume that we were doing IVF beforehand.
When he died, did you know you weren't pregnant, or you were still going, oh, maybe I could be pregnant this month?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always love to go back and think, where was my head at? And it was like, obviously I was in so much shock, so I wasn't thinking much, but I definitely do remember having this specific moment where I was like, I think I must have grabbed my belly and been like, oh my God, I wonder, like, I know I just ovulated. We had tried really hard that month. Like, we tried every month, but we tried. And I was like, I fucking better be pregnant this month. But also, oh my God, would I want, like, what?
Yeah.
He's just died. Like, could definitely not even say that word at that time. Do you know what I mean? So it was definitely a thought, I think, for a second, but then got it out of, like, just kind of didn't think it again because it was just the craziest time. And then I think I was so stressed and everything was just happening that I got my period really early. I must have got it just 3 days later. Like, my period came super early when it wasn't due for like 2 weeks.
When was the first time someone suggested to you sperm retrieval?
It was the next day, and it was my brother. And I remember just having like my head buried in my hands and knees on my back deck, and my brother just came over, and there was just like people all around at my house, and he just came and kind of mentioned, hey, I've been talking to Chloe and Mum and Laura, and we're talking about sperm retrieval, and said something along the lines of that. And I just didn't ask any questions. I didn't need to ask any questions. I just heard the word sperm retrieval, and I just didn't even want to have a conversation, but I just said, go and do whatever you can. I don't even know what that means, but just do, like, yes. Because I mean, sperm retrieval, like, I can
you
hear
knew
those
what that
words.
would mean.
Yeah, but also never heard of it, and it's fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
But I just said, yes, whatever. I don't know, go. Like, go. I didn't know what the procedure, like, I don't know. I still, you know what I mean? Don't even know. But yes, the answer is yes. And he just ran off and spoke to everyone, like, as in my immediate family, Chump's immediate family, and everything just aligned and just came together.
Those few days, those couple of days, or the day before that happened, I'm not going to ask you about the day that Chumpy passed away, because I don't want you to have to relive that trauma. But before someone suggested the idea of sperm retrieval, and I know that you were in shock and you don't remember a lot of things from that time, but as everything was, you were trying to process the fact that you'd lost him, were you also thinking, I've also lost our future together, our family together? Like, were you looking forward as well, or were you just so in that moment of even trying to process what had happened?
I wasn't in any moment. I was definitely in so much shock that I wasn't thinking at all. But it's so true. Like, people have this whole like, okay, that person died, you'll be okay in a few months kind of attitude. And it's like, no, we had this entire life together. Like you said, I'm now grieving, you know,
the rest of your life.
Everything we were going to do together, every little holiday, or like I'm looking at my dog going, I'm grieving for you because you're obsessed with him and now you've got me and I'm not as good as him, and like you had both of us before and we were going to have a baby. I would be pregnant. He's missing like me having the big belly, and I'll like that's fun. And just everything. Where were we going to be forever? Where were we going to surf? What were we going to do to the house?
Being
like
parents together, like all of that. Yeah.
Just everything. You're literally looking at this. I mean, you're not really looking into the future because it's scary. Even now, I mean, I'm such an optimistic person and I am excited for my future now that I have Minnie. But there was so long where I was just like, no, the future's a weird even word. I don't want to think about it, like not in a negative way, but just it's just kind of gone black.
Yeah.
My future just I felt like went black because I just had so many plans with Chump.
What does shock feel like?
You just feel numb and you just you really do feel like you're not in your body. And I was never like a spiritual person or never a deep thinker. I'm just a very like happy-go-lucky person. Like I'm not analysing. I don't overanalyze. I just don't overthink. I'm just like whatever. But I honestly do remember feeling like I was out of my body and I was like above my body, and it was like I was looking down at myself, and I was sitting there with my friends chatting and laughing. And this was probably a month later, and we were just doing like what we'd normally do. Maybe we were out for dinner or something. And I was like above myself, looking down at myself and going, what the fuck are you doing? How come you're sitting there laughing? It's not funny. Chump just died. And like, you're just so not in your body. And then like, it's like you jump back in to your body, and I'd be looking at someone and I'd be having this, what would look like a completely normal conversation. But in my head, I'm not even listening to the person. Like in my brain, right at the forefront is, where the fuck is Chumpy and what just happened and what am I going to do and how is this real? Like you're always, genuinely always looking around at other people's reactions and faces. Like you're looking around for like validation that, am I just living this nightmare alone, or are you as rattled as me? Like, did he die? Like, are you sure? Like, am I going crazy? It's like that. And people, yeah, and it's weird, like as life goes on, so the month or two later, people do start getting like they know something gnarly's happened, but they are getting normal-ish.
Oh, yeah.
So you are like, I'm also a very social person. I think my friends were my like safety blanket. So I was always trying to be with people and just always with my best friends who I trust so much. So, but I'd often be looking around going like, I know we're doing normal shit, but like he's not here.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. It's weird that he's not sitting here. Are you feeling that too? That would always be going through my head. Like always. No one would have known it. They would have just thought I'm acting great and Elle's fine.
She's going so well.
And I was.
She's really
I wasn't
good.
going badly. I was okay. But 100% would always just be like, holy shit.
And that thing that I've heard you say and you write about, where is he? Like, but where is he? Not where is his body, but where is he?
Yeah.
Like this big personality, but where?
Yeah. Where does the energy go?
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing ever. And when you let your mind think like that, I really do believe now that we are just vessels, and yes, someone can die, but we're all made up of just like energy, and it's got to go somewhere. And I felt him around me, and I still do. And I feel him in my dog, and I see him in my daughter. Like I know he's everywhere, and I'm not saying I feel him all around me all the time. I definitely feel alone sometimes, and I definitely am like, a bit cynical and realistic in that I'm like, well, you're not fucking here, are you? Like, where are you? I'm doing all this alone kind of thing. I don't think he's here at all, but I think spiritually and energetically sometimes I do believe and feel 100% genuinely like I know it in my gut that he is around me.
There have been some crazy coincidences and signs, like on his birthday around a year. Was it a year after he died or his first birthday?
Yes.
What happened then?
So that was amazing. Chump's parents were up, and it was, a year after he passed away. We were all dreading that day because it's a funny one. The year is like
the year of firsts.
You want to acknowledge his life, but it's not a celebration. So it's like, what are we going to do that day? Are we going to make really fun food and eat and be happy? Like, but how can we be happy? Like, just the weirdest thing. And then you all get together for it too. So you're like, we're just all getting together to cry. Like, that sucks. I'd rather be alone. Like, it's just the weirdest. It's just such a head fuck that day. I just hated it. But anyway, Chump's parents came up, we all decided to kind of go for a surf that day. So there was friends around. And we did go down to, sorry, I'm actually getting confused. Chumpy's dad's birthday was like,
it was his dad's birthday.
His dad's birthday was 4 days before. Sorry, his dad's birthday was 4 days before the 1 year mark that Chumpy passed. So sorry, I'm with us now. So he was up because he was up for that weekend because it was like in the same week that it happened. We went down to Cabarita in the car to take the dogs for a walk at the dog beach, and then on the way back we're on the road going from Cabarita, if you know it, to Casuarina. It's just like a road, and his dad quickly pulls over and I'm like, oh, what are we, we don't pull over here. There's nothing. There's just bush. And he's like, oh, there was something on the side of the road. It was like a bit of rubbish, I thought. Like they're always picking up rubbish off the beach and stuff, like good Samaritans. So I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. We happened to be on the phone in the car to Chumpy's sister Emma at the time. So we're having this chat with her, happy birthday, Dad kind of chat, and he's just nicked off to grab something from the middle of the road. And he comes back and he's holding an axe and he's like, like a little tomahawk axe thing that's just sitting in the middle of the road, which was so random because Chumpy and his dad had literally refurbished old axes in Chumpy's dad's garage. They'd like remodeled them, so added new like wood bits and then carved out parts to the axe part and like engraved things and like made these old tomahawk axe things look just stunning, and they're like hanging up in our house and down in Eden in his parents' house as well. And axes for him and his dad, for Chumpy and his dad, are like a really symbolic tool that like they grew up camping, but also Chump and his dad and his mum, they love the Vikings, the show. And so Chumpy's always channeling the Vikings theme music before he goes and competes. It's like his thing. He's always putting it on. And like I'm never there because I'm never overseas with him, but he's always putting it on and getting into like this Viking kind of essence before he goes out there and like tries to dominate.
He looks a bit like a Viking.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And so axes, and he always goes on about axes. And then when he made this axe, he's just like, axes is a symbol of like perseverance and determination, and like it's just a really strong kind of symbol. And that's just so Chump, and it's just weird.
And that massive tattoo that he had on his rib cage.
And then he got a massive tattoo on his rib, like takes up his whole stomach, side of his stomach with an axe. So then to go and find an axe in the middle of the road, that was definitely one of the best signs we've had for sure. And also it was really cool that it was his dad that picked it up because his parents and I was never spiritual, but they're definitely like, I'll be like, but he's all around us and I feel this and da-da-da. And they're like, shut up, he's gone. Do you know what I mean? Like stop pretending.
So that must have given everyone just a moment to reflect.
I think not to say it like turned them at all, but I think it was like, wow, like that's pretty cool, and that must have been from Chump, hopefully, kind of thing. Gave him comfort.
After the break, I asked Ellidy exactly what happened during the sperm retrieval process. It's something she only just recently learned. And I also asked how she's dealing with this combination of joy and grief that's always present in her life and in her heart. In the couple of days after he passed away and the 37 hours that passed until his sperm was retrieved, I imagine as soon as you gave the green light to your brother, well, two things. I can imagine that everyone went, right, we've got a purpose, we've got a job, because one of the hardest things is when there's someone who's grieving and everyone's grieving, it's like there's nothing to do and all everyone wants to do is try to bring that person back. With the momentum and everything of those couple of days, did it almost feel at times like if you succeeded, he would be alive again? Is that a crazy thing to say?
It's a weird thought. Yeah, it was like we were probably trying to, without thinking about it, just grasping onto any bit of hope that we had to bring any part of him back.
Yeah.
But I didn't, although I did just always feel like this wasn't real and he's just going to walk in the front door and be like, kidding, I'm here. I don't think I thought that we were going to bring him back in some other miraculous way. But the whole thing did feel like a bit of a joke. Like he'd just put this big prank on us. That is definitely how it felt. But yeah, I think we just held on to hope. Like I think also with the retrieving the sperm, it was more like, okay, we need to think for just 1 millisecond and we need to make a good decision here, because if we don't do it now, we've only got now. And then what if in a year I do want to make this decision, or collectively we all go, oh, that'd be really cool if you did have his baby, blah, blah, blah. And we're going, oh, well, we were idiots back then and in so much shock that we didn't go ahead with it, and it was offered to us as an option.
So everyone had the presence of mind to say, look, you just want to have options. Let's
later.
Give you every option.
Yep.
No need to make a decision now.
Totally.
But we're just going to do this so that you've got the options.
Yep. And I knew even then, I think in my crazy head, I knew even then I was definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
I wasn't like wishy-washy. I wasn't like,
No.
I mean,
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, we wanted a baby and I wanted a
Yeah.
baby and he wanted a baby. So I was just going to continue to live our life even without him. I was just like, I'm doing this. But I knew I needed time.
You write so beautifully about the IVF doctor. Two IVF doctors said no, they can't do it, or it was too late. The clock was ticking. Finally, your friend found a doctor who would do it, Dr. Davidson. Dr. Davidson had never done it before, but he was like, yeah, I'll give it a crack. Went into the morgue. And afterwards you learned that his wife, who was also his nurse, was there with him. What did she tell you about what happened?
So cute. I actually caught up with them the other day and the receptionist, who's like the pinnacle of it all as well. She's the one that made it happen. So, yeah, I was in a scan with Dr. Davidson and his wife, who works for him. Like, I was in my last scan with him, basically. So I'd been pregnant and then I was like, I think the 12-week scan, and then he kind of hands you over, or you then go, like, I was going publicly. So then I go to like my other doctors or nurses and stuff, the midwife program. And at that last appointment with Dr. Davidson and his wife, Louise, yeah, she said to me, you know, I actually was there that day when Dr. Davidson, my husband, was doing the procedure, and that's when I learned that they were husband and wife. I didn't even know they were together. I just thought she worked for him, you know. They're very professional. And she said, I was there with him and I actually held Chumpy's hand and I told him I just spoke to him. I spoke to him when Dr. Davidson was doing it and I was just with him, and it made it all feel really real in that moment. And I think I was like, oh, you guys husband and wife, like, you know, it was just beautiful the way that she was talking about him doing it. And then it just made it real, and it made me realize that Chump really was he was lying there, and there was a procedure to get the sperm, which thank God I've heard countless stories now of Dr. Davidson doing the same procedure after, which is really cool. But yeah, it made it very real and it made it feel very clinical and weird. But IVF is clinical and sciencey, and you know,
it's not the magic conception story that you and Chumpy would have dreamed of.
But it definitely made it feel real. And I was like, oh my gosh, you saw him and you're with him. And I was like, fuck, that's gnarly. But also, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But it got me it was super emotional.
You chose not to be there. Did you have the option?
No, I didn't have the option. I definitely.
Did you want to go and see him?
I didn't, because A, I didn't believe that he was really dead, and B, I'd had such a great morning with Chump and like such a great last encounter with him, and I remember that, and I remember his face, and I remember him being so happy and so excited to go out and get in the water, and I just really didn't want to fuck that up by having this other image of him. My mum and my brother still say to me, we had this chat about it the other day, we're at my pop's funeral and we went back in the hotel room in Goulburn, and they were like fully talking about it with me. We were all emotional, we were all crying, and they were like, although he looked fine, he just looked like he'd been for a swim. Yeah, he was a bit cold, but they were like, we're just so that, like, my brother in particular, he's like, I see it every night when I close my eyes and I go to bed. And he's like, I don't want to remember Chump that way. I don't remember him that way, but I can't get that image out of my head. And I'm so glad you didn't see it.
Yeah.
Even at the funeral, like, you know, obviously you go through the funeral process, which I accidentally kept calling a wedding the whole time because it was at this beautiful venue, and it just, like, I'm not used to saying the word funeral. So I kept being like, oh, yeah, going to see the wedding site, going to the wedding. Like, it was just because it was just this event in my head, and just the funeral just wasn't a thing that I did or spoke about ever. Like, so wedding was this thing that we'd go to every weekend, another wedding, da-da-da, like, you know what I mean? I just accidentally kept calling it a wedding. And at the wedding venue, funeral venue, it's always, you know, them going, so today do you want to come and see the body, like, you know, because you're there like heaps of days we were there organising things.
Feels like there's a bit of pressure.
There was definitely pressure.
To do that.
And then other family members would be coming in to see Chump's body, and I just had to go with my gut. There was so many times where I thought, I'm doing the wrong thing. Like, is it normal to see him? Maybe that's what you do, because everyone was doing it. Like, all family members were doing it to say their final goodbyes. And I felt like, I definitely remember feeling a bit judged or a bit shit for not doing it. But I
You
really
knew.
couldn't. I just knew in my gut I really didn't want to do it, and I'm still really glad I didn't. But my whole thing was I'm scared that I'll regret it in years to come, but I just couldn't think forward either.
Yeah, of course. But you knew in that
I knew.
moment.
I think I knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
I'm glad I didn't.
Who was the first person that you told you were pregnant?
Well, my mum was at my house at the time when I got the call, so I was screaming and I told her. But I knew I was pregnant. I just knew it. I didn't do any tests, but I just felt that I was. I just knew it. It was like I became very intuitive once Chump died, and I just knew things. But like I really did. I swear a lot of the things I knew were like true. So I think I told her straight away, and then I told my dog who was right beside me.
Yeah.
And then I called Chump's parents and I FaceTimed them and I told them. And
That must have been
then I just told
emotional.
everyone else. Yeah. Yeah, and his sister and my brother, and everyone was just stoked. But I think I'd kind of told them, I really feel like I'm pregnant. Like I'm like 99% sure.
How stressful was the pregnancy, that fear of loss?
In some ways, in like a very like overall way, I loved being pregnant. But then in an emotional way, I was scared the entire time there was something wrong with the baby. And we kept going to scans and the baby was always measuring small, which is so normal. Like so normal for them to just be anywhere on the percentile from 1 to 100, obviously. But Minnie was always on like the 4th percentile. She was always just tiny.
Hence
I
Minnie.
had Minnie, living up to her name. And then I had so many friends that were pregnant and they were all like, oh, my boy's on the 99th percentile, da-da-da. And I was just like, I'd just shut my mouth. I was just like in my head. So, yeah, it's definitely scary. And then having that attachment thing, like I can't lose another person. Like what? Like I can't, you know, this is my one bit of hope. And also if I lose it, am I going to go through it again? Like am I just taking the piss to like try and keep this miracle thing alive kind of thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just felt funny. It just felt surreal that I was actually pregnant and he wasn't there. But
Of course.
in general, aside from like the fearing, I loved being pregnant. I loved having this big belly. I just thought it was so fun. I loved being able to eat everything and like have the best excuse to just, you know, just be a little cute little blob. I just loved it.
You've talked about having a lot of counselling after he passed. It sounds so cliche, but, you know, were you told, you know, this doesn't mean he's going to come back. Like, you know that this is a baby. It's not him.
Yeah.
You've got to separate the two things. I mean, what's the process of kind of not putting too much onto this baby?
No, I'm so realistic. There's no way I thought he was coming out of my vagina and he was going to just be like Chumpy reborn. Like I knew that. Also, I knew I didn't find out the sex, but I just knew it was a girl. So that was another thing that I knew, but I kept to myself and everyone around me was telling me it was a boy. But no, there was no part of me that thought Chumpy's just going to reincarnate or something.
Yeah.
Although
it's magical thinking, but it's not like it would have been stupid to think that.
I mean, I think woo-woo, like, you know, a lot of people might, I don't know. No, surely not. That's a bit crazy.
Well, I guess part of him, 50% of her is him.
I mean, even when I'd see clairvoyants and stuff, they'd be like, you know, part of him's coming back. She's going to have his eyes or he or she is going to, you know, they'll do certain mannerisms and it'll be him. And I'm like all about that. I'm like, yeah, well, exactly. He's 50% her, he's 50% me. There's obviously going to be Chumpy that will come through, hopefully. And yeah, you know what? She came out and she's way more him than she is me, like completely.
Did you see clairvoyance to try and contact him?
Yeah. And also I think it was like another kind of therapy or counselling that it felt comfortable and I loved the reassurance. And I was just, funnily enough, on the plane this morning coming down and I listened. I was just saying at lunch just then to my mum, I listened to the first reading I ever had and it was an hour-long reading by a friend of a friend who I'd actually never met and she decided to go to the beach one afternoon 3 days after Chump passed away and try and channel him and she did this hour-long recording and I'd listened to it back then and I never thought to listen to it again until my friend said, hey, did you ever go back and listen to Amy's reading? Because I've been thinking about it because we all sat around listening to it like a few times like that week, like back when it happened. And she's like, I've been thinking about it and I really think you should listen to it again because I remember so many things she was saying. I feel like they've happened. Anyway, this morning I listened to it on the plane. so bizarre. She said she basically thought I was pregnant at the time, but then was talking about this conscious birth that I'm going to have. And she's like, I feel like you're going to have his baby, but I know that sounds really weird if you're not pregnant. Maybe it's that you're rebirthing your own identity and you're going to have this rebirth, but I know you're going to be pregnant and I hope you're pregnant. I don't know if you are. It was like, that's how she was saying it.
And probably no one could make sense. She couldn't have made sense of it.
She was so confused by saying it. She was like, I'm sorry I'm saying this. I didn't mean to say that. I hope that doesn't hurt you, but this is what I'm saying. And then she was like, he was going to do a bunch of things that you're now going to do and you're not confident and you're not one of those people that can do things that he wanted to do, or you think you're not, but you're going to do it. And it's totally things like this, media, podcasts. Like I now have a podcast. He was going to do that. He's amazing at talking to people and the cameras, and I would always be like, oh my God, you're going to go on the news. What are you doing? Don't do that. That's so scary. Like how are you doing that?
And look at you.
And now, I mean, like I don't feel comfortable with it. It scares the shit out of me. But I'm now doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud to be doing it. I don't want to do it. I'd rather him be back
Yeah.
and me not doing any of this shit. Do you know what I mean? But it's so weird that how much I've grown. Basically, I've just grown and I've just done so much that I like never ever would have written about. Like I never thought I'd do anything like this. Never thought I'd have a microphone in my face. I literally could not get up at uni or school and read out a page of anything. I'd be like this fumbling mess, shaking, like fully couldn't even read for the life of me, like would never do anything like that.
I've heard that described before as post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
So it's like when you have a big tragedy or trauma and your life actually gets bigger afterwards, and it doesn't take away the hole that person left, but you grow. You do. Like, because you have to fill spaces that weren't there before.
Well, that's so funny you say that, because like now I'm thinking everything I saw on social media after was, hey, there's this grief page here, there's this widow here, there's this community of girls you could join here. They're all talking about X, Y, and Z. They've all lost their partners or they've all lost someone. Or there's this podcast about grieving widows. There's just everywhere. There was left, right, and centre people who'd gone through a loss and they'd created X, Y, and Z from it to help them get through. And it's and I get it. It's their therapy, and because you have to stay busy, so you have to do shit. And a lot of the time that shit ends up being like really cool things that end up helping other people. And that's why sometimes I hate that I'm doing so much and I feel like I'm so busy and I just want to relax sometimes. But also I'm very proud of how many people that I know, and I hate even saying it out loud because I feel like a wanker, but I know I've helped people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so nice. I hear people come back and just like people will say to Chloe and I, who I do my podcast with, like, you've saved my life. I heard you say this and that, and it just like I literally wanted to kill myself, or now I'm hooked on your podcast and you're talking about this. Thank you so much for bringing that to light. Or my partner died and I wouldn't have known about sperm retrieval if it wasn't for you.
There must be babies in the world.
There's babies now.
That because of you and Chumpy.
Like even not
just your own baby.
Yeah, and even my book launch I had the other week in the Gold Coast, there was a girl there that had travelled from somewhere to come, and she was like, my partner died end of last year and we got his sperm. Thank you so much. I just had to come and meet you and I wanted to tell you.
Because people wouldn't have known about it.
No, well, I mean, I wouldn't have known about it. It was by chance my friend heard of it. So I just want to spread awareness, if anything, and give hope to people.
I once interviewed a woman who had 2 little kids and was pregnant with her third when her husband died unexpectedly. And she gave birth about 6 or 7 months later. And she said it wasn't until that day that she gave birth that she realised he was gone, because she said she thought he would walk in. And when he didn't, it hit her in a way that it just hadn't until then. What was that day like for you?
Yeah, I feel like that does make sense. I feel like shit just becomes real. I never thought he would walk in, but I think I just had this like energy feeling of like, wow, the circle of life is happening right before my eyes. Like his DNA and 50% of him, like you said, is just coming out of me.
Yeah.
And here she is, and I have like a piece of him back. And it's just so bizarre. And straight away, I just saw him in her eyes straight away. They've got identical eyes. And I knew they would. I like spoke about it beforehand. And I like even remember writing, like I think I have a post on like Instagram saying, I can't wait to see his eyes in my baby.
Yeah.
Didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but I like said that, and it's weird that they came out with the exact same eyes, like they're identical eyes, these brown like almond shaped eyes. And yeah, it is a bizarre euphoric feeling and definitely emotional, but like the joy 100% outweighs any of the, like, it wasn't a sad day at all. I think that lady that you're talking about, I'm sure she would have been overwhelmed with joy for her new baby, as well as being like, fuck, he didn't come into the room.
She was. It was the two things at once.
Yeah, but I definitely felt just like a lot of pure joy. And just I felt blessed and lucky, just lucky because it was such a miracle.
There's more to my chat with Ellidy, and in our exclusive episode for Mamamia subscribers, we talk about finding love again and also whether she'd consider baby Chumpy number 2. Is there more sperm?
There's more sperm, and we do have an embryo sitting there on ice.
And her answer to that question is going to surprise you. It certainly surprised me. You can listen to that right now. Just follow the links in our show notes. And if you want to hear more of Ellidy's story, her beautiful book about her life with Chumpy and what happens after he was gone, it's called Heartstrong and it's available now. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's such a lovely read. The assistant producer of No Filter is Emmeline Peterson. The executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. And I'm Mia Friedman. Thanks for having me in your ears.